So this guy's about to go to prison because he complained that his McDonald's fries were too cold. This story is wild. Now the guy's name is Antoine, and Antoine is 20 years old when all this starts, living in Georgia, and Antoine is what you would call an unlicensed pharmacist. He apparently sells a lot of Zaza. But one day in 2018, something pretty crazy happens to him because he gets a text. Some goons in town apparently want to buy a little Zaza from him. So Antoine's like, all right, come through. Sometime later, a car with 3 people in it pulls up in front of this apartment complex where they agreed to meet. When the car parks, 2 goons get out and they go and meet with Antoine, while one woman waits inside the car for them to finish the deal. We'll call her girlfriend, because she's apparently one of the goons' girlfriends. And so the 2 goons are talking to Antoine about this drug deal. Then, for some reason, they disagree about something. Maybe it's the price, I don't really know. But they get into some sort of argument. And they're yelling at Antoine, and he's yelling back, and they're challenging each other. Then, allegedly, each of the 2 goons pulls out a pistol, and they're like, give me all your money, or whatever. And they're suddenly trying to rob Antoine. And Antoine, he's not having this. He's like, hell no, you're not about to rob me. And he pulls out his pistol, and suddenly, blam, blam, he's shooting at the goons. And blam, blam, the goons are shooting back at him. Meanwhile, girlfriend is still sitting in the car, and suddenly, blam, a bullet flies through the window, and it hits her. And unfortunately, she's immediately unalived. And I don't know if the 2 goons see her get hit, I don't know if they're scared for their lives or what, but they turn and they flee the scene. So now, Antoine is safe. But at some point, he sees girlfriend in the car, and she's not moving, so he knows she must not be alive. And I guess he's like, oh shit, police are gonna blame me for this. And so he improvises a plan to prevent that from happening by getting rid of all the evidence. First, he gets in this car, and I guess the goons had left the keys or something because he's able to start it up and drive it. Then he drives girlfriend around 13 miles away to an empty parking lot. And there he parks the car and he sets the whole thing on fire. Then he flees the scene. Later, police are called and they show up and they start investigating this whole thing. Now, since this all happened in front of an apartment complex, some bystanders must have seen it all go down. Because pretty quickly, police get a tip linking Antoine and the 2 goons to the crime. So then police start trying to track all 3 of these guys down. About a month later, both goons must know they're screwed because they ultimately turn themselves in and they end up in jail. But Antoine, he doesn't turn himself in. He's not the kind of guy who gives up easily. He's like, nah. And he goes on the run and he flees Georgia and he goes all the way to Wisconsin. 6 months later, it's now 2019, and U.S. Marshals find him there in Wisconsin, and bam, they arrest him. Here's his mugshot. But it's not over yet, because he spends a few years in jail, and he's finally let out on bond, but he's still expected to go to trial for this shooting and for girlfriend's death. But then, he doesn't show up for his court hearing. He basically goes into hiding. And so police issue a warrant for his arrest, and now Antoine is officially a wanted man on the run. But here's where the story gets really crazy. It's now 2022, and Antoine is 24 years old at this point, and he's still hiding out somewhere in Georgia, keeping a low profile because, he's wanted. And one day, he's at a local McDonald's with his fiancée, and they're sitting down at one of the tables or whatever, and they've already ordered, and they're waiting on their food. After a while, they realize that they still don't have their food. And so Antoine walks up to the counter to ask what's up, only to find out that their order is actually done, and it's been sitting on the counter for a while, and to make it worse, their fries are now cold. And so Antoine, he gets super pissed off and he asks the workers for a new order of fries, and I guess the owner is there, and for whatever reason, he's like, nah, no new fries, but we can give you a refund. Which I've never heard of a McDonald's being this difficult over cold fries, but this is what happened according to Antoine. And so from here, Antoine gets even more pissed. He's like, no, I don't want a refund, I want fresh fries. Like literally put the fries in the bag, bro. And from here, things just escalate, and they both get really mad at each other. And allegedly, Antoine throws his food at the owner, and then he throws his drink at the owner. And so the owner's like, yeah, you can have a refund, but you gotta get the hell out of here. And the owner is so mad that he calls the police on Antoine. And Antoine is also so mad that he goes outside and he also calls the police, but on the owner. Now at this point, most people, especially people who are wanted and have a warrant out for their arrest, they would take a step back and say, okay, maybe let's not get the police involved. Oh no, but not Antoine. Antoine is not about to let this cold French fry dispute slide. So when police arrive, he immediately tells them his side of the story.
We the ones that called.
Okay, what's up?
Basically, we went in there, purchased some food, so now our food is sitting there cold. So when I come up, I say, I try the fries. The fries they're lukewarm, but they're not hot.
And of course, the owner tells police his side, that Antoine got aggressive with him and was throwing food and drinks at him. And so then the officer goes back to Antoine and he tells him that the owner wants a criminal trespass order filed against him.
It's not a big deal. It's a
So you have to charge me?
No, we're not charging you. It's a piece of paper we're going to give you that's going to say, hey, you can't come back to this McDonald's. That's all it is.
And now, of course, Antoine, he looks calm, but inside he starts freaking out because, he's already a wanted man. And so one officer waits there with him while the other officer heads to his patrol car to grab a trespass form. While he's in the car, he decides to run a search on Antoine on his little computer, which of course reveals that Antoine has a warrant out for his arrest. Not only that, his driver's license is suspended. Because, of course it is. And so the officer immediately calls for backup. But he realizes that he needs to distract Antoine because Antoine is definitely the kind of guy who's gonna run once he realizes they're onto him. So the officer takes this trespass form and he continues to pretend like he's taking down details, talking with Antoine, and that everything is all right. A few minutes later, backup officers arrive, and the officer asks Antoine to move a little closer to him to sign the form. And this is when Antoine finally realizes that they're onto him.
Hey, you come over here, man.
No, I'm afraid of y'all, sir.
Why are you afraid?
I did 3 years, sir. I'm afraid of y'all,
All right,
sir.
I'm going to walk you through. Why are you doing that?
I know how to fill it out.
Why are you doing that?
I know how to fill it. Am I
All
right?
right, yeah, come on.
No, let's wait here.
Got him! Contact! Contact, backside!
And I can't show you the actual footage, but it's here that the officer tases him, and that lets them finally catch him. And so, bam, Antoine gets arrested. Here's his mugshot. And all this happened in 2022, but from here, I can't find any updates on the guy. Literally zero. But I assume he was eventually convicted in the 2018 shooting, and he's now in prison. But I actually don't know, so I guess the shooting stuff is technically alleged.